Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine and are taking care of yourselves. My name is Kanika Tandon and I'm here with the video of Class 8th English 2nd. In our last video, we have done half of the explanation of chapter number 8, which is the dying detective. And in today's video, we are going to complete the chapter as per the explanation and also with a little summary for whatever we have read in the chapter. So as we start our today's video, first let me give you a short summary of what has happened in this chapter. The chapter's name is The Dying Detective and number is 8. This is a story about a famous imaginative character from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, whose name is Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He is a detective with a high reasoning and logical capabilities, and also about his roommate and his friend Dr. John Watson, who is a retired army doctor. So the scene in this story is that Sherlock Holmes is actually dying because he has got some kind of disease from the eastern side of the Southeast Asia, and there is no doctor, according to Sherlock Holmes, who can treat this disease. And Dr. John Watson, as he himself is a doctor, is very sad to know that his friend is in such a dying condition and he cannot do anything. So he decided that there is a doctor that he knows, Dr. Enstry, who is actually a tropical disease specialist, and he has been studying about that particular disease, and he wants him to call and get you treated. But Sherlock Holmes wants somebody else who is not a doctor, but he wants this person to treat him. So John Watson asks about the person who can actually treat Sherlock Holmes. So he tells his name, that is his name was Dr. Curverton Smith, right? And he also tells him his address and orders him to fetch him in single hour. So now let us read what has happened next in the story. So in the last paragraph, what has happened, as Dr. John Watson is out from the house to get a cab and get Dr. Culberton Smith, there was a cab that stood at the door. Now let us read next. "How is Mr. Holmes, sir?" he asked. It was an old acquaintance, Inspector Morton of Scotland Yard. "He is very ill," I answered. I was surprised to see a slight smile upon his face. However, before I could think more about it, the cab drove up and I left him. The house at Lower Burke Street had old-fashioned iron railings, a massive folding door, and shining brasswork. A butler appeared and took up my card. So what happens, this person who is an old acquaintance, that is old friend of Sherlock Holmes, Inspector Morton, he comes and asks, "How is Mr. Holmes?" And then he tells him that and John tells him that he is quite ill, and then he leaves to get Mr. Curverton Smith. Now as he reaches his home at Lower Burke Street, he finds that the house is very old looking. Okay, and then a butler, which is a servant, comes up and gets his card, so that he can go and meet up to Dr. Smith. "Who is this person? What does he want?" "Well, I won't see him." Though the half-open door, I heard this high, penetrating voice. Before the butler could deliver his message, I pushed past him and was in the room. So what happens when this butler went to Dr. Smith and told him about Mr. Sherlock Holmes? He told that he is not going to treat that person, and Dr. John Watson actually listens to this and gets angry and gets into the room without even asking for the permission. With a shrill cry of anger, a man rose from a reclining chair beside the fire. "What's this?" he cried in a high, screaming voice. "I'm sorry," said I, "but the matter cannot be delayed, Mr. Sherlock Holmes." The mention of my friend's name had an exclamatory effect upon the little man. The look of anger in an instant for his face. How have you come from Holmes? He asked. Now, actually, he did not know what kind of what kind of a to whom he was going to treat. So, when he knew that it was from Mr. Holmes, he was normal. He did not get angry and asked him whether John Watson have come from Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He is desperately ill. He is dying. This is why I have come. The man turned to his chair and he did so. I caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror over the masterpiece. I could have sworn that it was set in a malicious and hateful smile. So, according to Don Watson, he was actually very happy to know that it was Sherlock Holmes who have caught this disease. He could see that he was very happy about it, and that his the smile that he passed was very hateful and very enemy kind of a smile. Yet he turned to me an instant later with the genuine concern upon his feature. I only know Mr. Holmes through some business dealings, but I have every respect for his talents and his characters. He thought you were the one man in London who could help him because of your knowledge of Eastern diseases. Mr. Curberton Smith smiled pleasantly and picked up his cap. I will come with you at once. I remembered Holmes' order. I have another appointment. I said very good. I will go along. You can rely on me being there within half an hour at most. So what happens? So John Watson tells him that Sherlock Holmes tells him that you are the only person who can treat this Eastern disease. So he decides to go to Sherlock Holmes with John Watson, but then John Watson remembers that Sherlock Holmes clearly said to him that you will not bring that person with you. He can come all alone and you can come all alone. So he gave an excuse. John Watson gave an excuse that he has an appointment and he has to go. You can go to Mr. Sherlock Holmes' house, and he promised that he'll be there in half an hour. It was a sinking heart that I re-entered Holmes' bedroom. For all I knew, the worst night might have happened in my absence. To my relief, he had improved greatly in an interval. He thought that if he would have written, something bad must have happened to Sherlock, but he had actually improved. Well, did you see him, Watson? Yes, he's coming. Admirable, Watson, admirable. Now you must disappear from the scene. There is just room enough behind the head of my back. Okay, so he tells him to leave the room immediately. My dear Holmes, I exclaimed, I fear there is no alternative, Watson. The room does not offer any other place of concealment, and don't budge whatever happens. So he told him that the room does not allow more than 2 people to stay in the room, and you are requested not to interfere in between. Just listen with all your ears. Then in an instant his sudden burst of strength departed, and he drifted into the low vague murmurings of a semi-delirious man. Okay, and then he went back on to he went back to murmuring state where he was when John Watson was leaving the home for getting the doctor. From my hiding place, I could hear the opening and the closing of the bedroom door. I could imagine our visitor standing by the bed and looking at the sufferer. At last, the stranger hush was broken. So, this stranger is Mr. Curberton Smith, who has already come, and then John and Sherlock realize that the person has already come. Holmes, he cried. Holmes, can you hear me? Is that you, Smith? Holmes whispered. It is very noble of you to have come. Our visitor sniggered. Do you know what is the matter with you? So now as this man, Mr. Smith, enters, Sherlock actually thanks him for coming to his place. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, Holmes. Poor Victor was a dead man on the 4th day. It was certainly, as you said, very surprising that he should have contacted an out-of-the-way astic disease in the heart of London. Singular coincidence. Holmes, very smart of you to notice it, but rather unkind to suggest that it was cause and effect. Okay, so he actually, there is another man which is Victor, we don't know about him. He was dead after the fourth day, on the fourth day of getting the disease. So he is actually comparing his disease with that particular person, and he is sad to know that he is the one, that Victor is the one who is actually, who has actually uh, uh, spreading the disease. I knew that you did it. Oh, you did you? Well, you couldn't prove it anyhow. Holmes groaned. Do you do what you can for me? Let bygones be bygones. Only cure me, and I will forget it. So now Sherlock Holmes knows that he is the reason behind this, behind the spreading of this disease, and now he tells him that he will forget everything if he treats Sherlock Holmes. Forget what? Well, about Victor Savage's death. You are good as admitted just now that you had done it. And since Mr. Smith actually what confessed that he has done it, Sherlock Holmes said that he is going to forget about it, that you have actually, because of you, Victor has died. You can forget it or remember it just as you like. It matters nothing to me that you should know how my nephew died. It's not him we are talking about, it's you. Yes, I am too ill to think. And now he says that he does not care whether you say truth or not, but he knows that we're not talking about the dead person. So this Victor person is the nephew of Mr. Coverton Smith. Coming on to the next page. Listen, Holmes. There was a sound as if he was shaking the dying man. Do you remember a box, an ivory box? It came by the post on Wednesday. You opened it. Do you remember? Yes, I opened it. There was a sharp spring inside it. Some joke. It was no joke. It was I who sent it. Who asked you to cross my path. If you had left me alone, I would not have hurt you. So this Mr. Smith is the person who sent the box which John Watson was actually touching while it was kept on the mantelpiece. So that box was sent to Sherlock Holmes by this Coverton Smith, and he is the reason why Sherlock Holmes was dying. It was no joke. It was I who sent it. Okay, I remember. Holmes gasped. The spring, it drew blood. This box, this one on the table, the very one, and it may as well leave the room in my pocket. There goes the last shred of the evidence, but you have the truth now, Holmes, and you can die with the knowledge that I killed you. So now he actually with the box, he kept that box in his pocket, and with that there was no evidence with Sherlock Holmes that this person, Mr. Smith, has actually killed his son, his nephew, and also he is also planning on to kill Sherlock Holmes. But Sherlock Holmes, trust me, was a very intelligent man. He must have planned something else for this person to confess. Holmes' voice had sunk to an almost inaudible whisper. So his voice was actually gone. He could not speak because he was dying. What is that? Said Smith. Turn up the gas. Is there any other service I can do for you, my friend? A march to light a candle. Okay. Okay, so he actually, here gas is used for a lamp that was used to get burned with the help of a gas. And he also wanted a match to light a candle. All right. I nearly called out in my joy and excitement. Holmes was speaking in his natural voice. There was a long pause, and I felt that Coverton Smith was standing in silent amazement, looking down at my companion. What is the meaning of this? He said at last in a dry, harsh tone. The best way of successfully acting a part to be it, said Holmes. I give you my words for that for 3 days I have tasted neither food nor Drink. Hello, do I hear the step of a friend? There was footsteps outside, the door opened, and Inspector Morton appeared. All is in order, and this is your man, said Holmes. So, this was actually an acting setup by Sherlock Holmes in order to make this man, Mr. Smith, confess the truth of killing his nephew and also trying to kill Mr. Sherlock Holmes. And since he knew, let us read how he has actually escaped. And since that a person came, Dr. Inspector Morton, he was actually in the room to be a witness of the confession of Mr. Smith, and this way he's actually arrested now. And you might add the attempted murder of one Sherlock Holmes, remarked my friend with a chuckle. Mr. Smith was good enough to give our signal by turning up the gas. By the way, the prisoner has a small box in the right hand pocket of his coat, which might play a part in this trick. Coming on to the next page. A nice trap, cried the high, snarling voice. He asked me to come here to cure him. Now he will pretend, no doubt, that I have said anything which he may invent. Good heavens, cried Holmes. I had totally forgotten him. My dear Watson, I owe you 1,000 apologies. To think that I should have overlooked you. I need not introduce you to Mr. Smith, since you have met earlier in the evening. Officer Morton took Mr. Smith to the police station. As Holmes sat down with a tired look, I asked how he had transformed his appearance so dramatically. 3 days of absolute fast does not improve one's beauty, Watson. When we have finished at the police station, I think that something nutritious at Simpson's restaurant would not be out of place. So now, since this was all a setup by Sherlock Holmes in order to make the confession from Mr. Smith, he has actually not tasted, he has actually not eaten or drunk anything in the last 3 days, so that he look a little dying like, right? So now he says to Dr. John Watson that if this if whenever this police station thing is over, we'll go to Simpson's restaurant and have something. With this, the explanation part of the chapter is over, and I hope that you have understood. In my next video, we'll be completing the question answers and exercise both in that single video. I'll see you all in my next video. Till then, take care and keep studying, and also please write the question answers in your notebooks. Thank you.